All right.
There we are.
Here we go.
All right, awesome. Excited about another chat. We had some great feedback last week on some of the things we were talking about. Again, if you have any questions immediately, you can toss them in the comments and we'll address that stuff. And we also have a few questions from last week that we'll get started with and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I'll put it in here too. So if you have any questions, yeah, anyone who's checking in, welcome to the live here. We got Mitch Stewart with Total Package Speed Strength and Conditioning, and myself, Dwayne Blais. We'll be talking about off-season training, but it could be any hockey topics or any hockey subjects that you want to talk about. Feel free to fire away. And basically, we're just going to chat a little bit about some of the questions that we've had over the last couple weeks, couple months, and even some stuff that comes up quite a bit, Mitch, as far as just asking off-season questions. Like parents always are asking stuff about how to get my kid to do this or how to get my player to get better at this. So we'll address a bunch of that stuff. First thing I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of something that's like an obviously a very popular way of training, but CrossFit or circuit training or things like that, which I do it. I'm an old guy, so I like doing some more bang for my buck in that 20, 30 minutes or hour that I'm going to do a workout. But what are your thoughts on adding that to, let's say you got realistically like a 13, 14, 15 and above hockey player. Is doing CrossFit or doing circuit training a good way to spend your off season, or should it be, is there kind of a sweet spot there?
Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting question. I think a lot of people look at CrossFit and circuit training as one and the same, but circuit training really is just putting together a variety of different exercises. You create rest intervals based on the training response that you're looking to get, and those exercises can be, whatever fits that athlete's ability. Whereas CrossFit, it is the competition of CrossFit and training for the competition of CrossFit. So a CrossFit workout could be like a 5 sets of 5 back squat with adequate rest, and then maybe a single leg exercise like a rear foot elevated split squat or something, and then some kind of finisher or something that's getting the metabolic conditioning aspect of CrossFit. So CrossFit, I like watching CrossFit. I think CrossFit's really, really cool. It's amazing to see how CrossFit has evolved as a competition over the last however many years it's been around. You can see some like original videos of CrossFit, and it was like in I can't even remember the guy's name who started it right now, Greg Glassman. Like in his backyard or something like that, and the technique on exercises was like atrocious, and it was just like it was just a battle. Like it was, and it's still a battle, but now when you watch it, it's really cool because all the athletes at an elite level in CrossFit, they're technically proficient in the exercises. Like if they're doing snatches or cleans or muscle ups or whatever, it looks really good. It's clean. Like they train those skills as skills.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't think a athlete like a volleyball player, a hockey player, really any athlete training CrossFit in the sense of like doing snatches for time and cleans for time and different CrossFit specific workouts like Murph or whatever those different ones are, is a great idea. But circuit training is a completely separate thing and can be a phenomenal way to train. For beginners, circuit training, you can develop strength as there's not a lot of experience with training, so they don't need those like 2-3 minute rest periods. They can rest 30, 45 seconds between exercises and still get strength adaptations. They can still get anaerobic adaptations. They're so new to everything that circuit training really is an effective way for a beginner to train. And they can improve in many areas through circuit training. Whereas the more advanced you get, circuit training would be more specific to improving aerobic qualities, not necessarily strength or power qualities. So again, for a beginner, you don't need to be taking 2-3 minute rest periods between squats or whatever, because you're brand new to the environment. As long as you're getting enough rest that you're fresh enough to do the exercise well, it's good. So circuit training is good in that context. Circuit training is good for more advanced athletes, but the exercises within the circuit should be at should meet the level of the athlete's ability to do those exercises well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like the lines get blurred, where people see a CrossFit workout, but it may be full of exercises that they're not proficient with,
Right.
and then it's not so good. So it's just really important to make sure that the circuit that you're designing is designed with exercises that fit your capabilities to move and do that stuff with, well.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think that's one of the blocks, like with CrossFit, is that a lot of times people get, due to exhaustion, or they get tired, right? And then their form gets off, their technique gets off, and that's how you get injured, and that's how you get hurt. So I think, to your point, you gotta make sure the exercises are obviously good, and hit the areas that you want them to hit, but also that you're doing it probably not till failure, right? You're doing it so you can still get, have good technique and be able
and
to.
If you are doing it to failure, it would be with exercises like sled pushes and stuff like that have a really low kind of risk of injury when you completely gas out. Like, you're not, trying to slam a bar up over your head where it's going to collapse and smash you in the head if your elbows give out or whatever, But again, like when you watch CrossFit at a really high level, like on the games, it's unbelievable how well they do all the exercises within the workouts that they're doing. Whereas it was not like that initially. And I think the big takeaway from this too is that I do think that a lot of times people view circuit training and CrossFit as the same thing. So you'll be doing a circuit and you'll be sweating and working hard, not you, anyone. And someone could walk in the room and just say, "Oh, you're doing CrossFit?" No, it's not CrossFit. It's just a workout. Like, you know what I mean? It's funny. It's actually unbelievable how well CrossFit has they've become part of everything. It's wild.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's also gone a little bit full circle, where strength conditioning is being separated and kind of distinctly different from CrossFit now.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Totally. One thing too, we talked about it a little bit last week as well, and I didn't really get into it much on the on ice piece of it, but when we talk about like the first 3 steps of a player, so I want to touch just quickly on the off ice piece of this, but that's kind of always one of the biggest things that parents obviously ask and players ask: how do I get quicker? How do I work on my first 3 steps? And I think that's a big part of hockey. Don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of times it's, we talked about it last week with the young boy whose dad was talking about him doing sprints and doing hill sprints and how do I get him faster, right? If we're just focusing on those first 3 steps, and last week we got into getting maybe a track coach or someone that understands running and teach you how to properly help you on the ice for sure. But we'll go off ice first and we'll come into on ice. But for off ice, if you're just focusing on those first 3 steps of the player, becoming more explosive, getting quicker, out of the block off a face-off or a quick stop start or coming out of a turn and exploding out of it, what would you recommend, I guess, for players to kind of focus on?
Okay, so 2 things, and I think this is where our relationship is unbelievably important, because if an athlete isn't able to get into the positions that are necessary for a quick start, then we're able to communicate that stuff. So it may have nothing to do with like that they have to do more quick twitch or explosive exercises. It may have nothing to do with that. If they're not even getting into a good position in the first place, you can't produce power out of a faulty or a broken type position. So if they're, and let's actually maybe go back, and you can answer this one, but like what types of, I don't know if we can pull pictures up on here or not, but like
I can.
How would you describe the position that you need to get into? If you can, I won't throw that on you right away. If you can look maybe real quick, and I can address some stuff. But for example, some of the things that we see is if a player can't get low enough and they're not able to get into a good dorsiflex position, their spine is collapsing, so their core is not engaged, so they're not able to connect their core to their hips and then through their legs to the ice. Then maybe what we need to work on is adding some mobility or some stability into their body so that they're able to achieve the proper positions for a quick start, where we don't need to do more skater jumps, skips, broad jumps, vert jumps, power cleans, whatever explosive types of exercises, where later on, once those positions are looking good and maybe they're still not quite getting that pop in their step, that's where we need to focus on some power, quick twitch, speed type exercises. But again, the first priority is to make sure that the athlete has the prerequisites physically to just get into those positions. It's no different than if we're teaching a squat or a clean or anything in the gym. We don't teach that exercise until, their hips are flexible enough, their ankles are flexible enough, their wrists are flexible enough, whatever joints need to be stable and mobile. We address that stuff first. And it's no different than for a hockey stride.
Yeah, no, I think for a lot of parents out there, I think, you're making your kid run home from the rink. I'm being old school here, but you're making your kid run home from the rink or do hill sprints or, do jumps, do squat jumps, whatever that is. And that's all good stuff. But if the technique's not there, the speed's never going to be there. So if the technique isn't good, like meaning exactly what you said, Mitch, for the on ice piece I'm talking about now, if you can't get in that squat position or that hockey player position with your knees bent, your ankles, ankle, getting your ankles dorsiflexed and being in a position where you can add that power, you're not going to be able to get quick. And I think that's the number one thing. And when you talk about quick starts on the ice, most often in a game, out of a stop start. So we're going to be stopping and then taking off and going the other way, or we're going to come out of a quick turn and then explode out of that. We are stopped once in a while, like on a face off, or maybe you're net front or you're in the wall. So you are taking off from a stop position, but for the most part, you're going to be moving a little bit. So I think it's really important to get that technique down. And once that technique is good, it's going to translate to a turn and it's a quick start or a stop start or a quick start off a draw. So like, it's really, really, really important to get that technique down. And that technique all comes from, you working with that on the off ice piece, if that makes sense. Like if they're better athletically off the ice, if they're better at getting in that position, if they're better at, bending at the knees, bending at the ankles, getting all that kind of their joints working the right way, then it's way easier to get them to be more explosive and quicker off their starts on the ice. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once we get that stuff out of the way, like we'll call it like the mobility prerequisites, which is often an overlooked piece with speed, or strength or any of those areas. Once that stuff's out of the way, then to answer your question on like exercises, we build things like strength through a trap bar deadlift. And then once they have an adequate amount of strength, we might be doing trap bar jumps, med ball jumps, different types of skip patterns, bounding. Right. But again, actually, like bounding, for example, is a fairly high, I would classify it as a fairly high level exercise because there is far more force than what most people may appreciate going through the ground on a hard and proper bound. So if the ankles, the knees, the hips, the core, if that stuff's not strong enough to support that force, then it's not an appropriate exercise. So that's where maybe a skip pattern would be more appropriate to start building that strength through the chain. And then once they have strength through that, through tempo type runs and sprints, then a bound or maybe a straight leg bound would be an appropriate option. So those are kind of the quick twitch explosive exercises that'll help to translate onto the ice. But again, you got to make sure that those things are done well. So movement prerequisites, and then kind of quick twitch, strength, and power exercises in the gym, like trap bar deadlifts, trap bar jumps, and then bringing that stuff into single leg too. So like split squats, jump split squats, single leg jumps, skips, all that kind of stuff.
No, it's great. And I think at the end of the day, for anybody listening, it comes back to the technique. It comes back to the starting point. That's the biggest thing. We had a question here on Instagram from CB4. Yeah. Can you be more specific on the positioning that's being referenced? So the position that we're talking about here is, on the ice, we call it kind of a hockey player position, which would be, head up, back straight with a little bit of a lean forward and then knees bent. So kind of shoulders over knees, knees over toes. In that position. The biggest thing too, and we're going to get into this a little bit, is ankle mobility. And ankle mobility, we're going to talk about a little bit, is massive, and it's something that is so neglected and people don't pick up on. A lot of times when players are trying to bend down or get low on the ice or bend their knees, they get so bent at the hips because they don't have that ankle mobility. They don't have that ankle flexion. So it's a big thing to look at with your players whenever you get a chance, if you're on the ice with them or even off the ice with them, see how they move, see how their ankles move, and you'll get a good tell if they're able to get in position.
I can do my best to try to just really quickly kind of show here. So I think I'm far enough away that you can see my feet all right. But a lot of times what players will do when they're getting the hockey player position is they'll flex forward from the spine and then they're lacking flexion of the ankle, or they'll bend over like this type of thing. Whereas what we want is to keep their chest up and they're actually getting into a dorsiflex position at their ankle. So that's plantar flex his toes down, dorsiflex his toes up. So when they're here, we want to be closing the gap between the shin and the top of the foot so that when they stride out, they're connected all the way through the posterior chain and can actually fire everything up the chain. So again, a lot of times players won't flex from the ankle. Their ankles will be back here. Maybe they're flexed from their spine, pushing their hips back. But it's really important that this angle right here is being closed a little bit to get into that hockey player position. I don't know. Hopefully you could see that back there.
Yeah, no, that was that. No, it's good. And if you notice, like when Mitch was doing his strides, which by the way looked amazing, Mitch, that was awesome.
Oh,
But like at the end of a stride, no matter if you're crossing over, skating, starting, whatever you're doing, you're always going to be snapping your toe. So that ankle flexion again is huge. That mobility in that ankle is massive to be able to finish a stride as well. So, man, any parents out there that are looking at making their kids faster, getting them quicker on the ice, more explosive, one thing to focus on is ankle mobility. And it's boring. It's super boring to work on. It sucks, but it is so huge, man. If you can incorporate that in your workouts or in your warm-ups or cool downs, just that mobility and getting that ankle moving around. We had another question just about thanks, Dolph. Dolph said we're very good looking dudes, so thank you for that. That was very
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
very, very nice. Yeah, any tips on getting lower, kind of address that, and then yeah, some like even like little or quick little exercises that you can do to help ankle mobility, Mitch. Like just even quickly, nothing crazy, but like what could someone do as far as just even rolling the ankle, like having, laying down kind of this is my foot and just rolling that ankle around, adding little bands to it, things like that.
Yeah, let me see if I can this is a lot easier.
Another demo. I love it.
Another demo. I think if I get in front of this sled, I'm all right. But getting down into like a half kneeling position and then keeping your hips square and rocking this knee forward, I should feel a stretch in through my Achilles, up into my soleus and gastroc. So those are all the different calf muscles. So I'm rocking into that front leg. You can come up to a wall. You want to try to ideally get your foot out 2 to 3 inches from the wall and then rock that knee into the wall without opening from your hips. And so this is one.
If someone's really tight and they don't have good ankle mobility, they're going to feel that like up their kind of back of their leg, right? Like their calf, their soleus are going to feel that.
Be right back in here. Yeah. And even if often what people will feel too is if they have any kind of restriction in the front of their ankle, they may feel like a pinchiness in the front of the ankle rather than a stretch in the back.
Right.
And then a good way to work on that is to just sit, like very simple, but sit back on your heels, like your standard feet on the ground, sit back on your heels and try to open up that space there. If that doesn't do it, then maybe getting some kind of therapy would be worthwhile. But the ankle is often an overlooked one, but that's a really simple drill that you can do to improve it.
If anyone else has any questions or even feedback on anything or comments, go ahead and fire them away. If you're on Instagram, fire them away. If you're on Facebook, National Skill Development Association or Total Package Speed, Strength and Conditioning, or on YouTube, feel free to fire away. But we have another question here, Mitch. Nick Nez asked if I may be able to actually show this. Oh, there you go. Hey guys, nice. Our words workout legit? And, or hill sprints.
Slide boards are actually a fantastic tool, and doing different types of intervals on the slide board, like say 15 seconds on, 30 seconds off. You might do that 6 or 8 times, rest 5 minutes, do it again. Those types of drills can be really, really good for generating lateral power. Hill sprints, another one. Hill sprints is one where, again, I really want to emphasize that any kind of sprinting you're doing, I think you're going to get more bang for your buck when you first understand sprinting mechanics. And hills can actually be a really fantastic way to enforce good habits because it requires you to lift your knee up a little bit higher. A lot of times hockey players especially tend to be pushers on the ice, so they don't actually get into a high knee position very well. And a hill can be a really good way it forces people to get their knees up basically. So that is one really good benefit of a hill. To answer the question, slide boards and hills can both be part of a really good training program at the right time with the right person.
Slide boards too. One thing I'd recommend, when you're doing it, you're not skating, you're not pushing like a skating stride. You're pushing laterally instead of like out in the back of that box or on a 45. So realistically, when you're doing that on a lateral, it's fine. But really focus on your technique. So keep staying low and try not to bound up and down and really snapping your toe. Every time you push off a ledge on a slide board, snap that toe and then absorb the other side. And just, but focusing on little technique pieces on stuff like that, not just going on a slide board and trying to rip around 100 miles an hour, but trying to really,
and that's, yeah, like you said, the push is totally different, but you can still focus on getting into that dorsiflex position,
totally
snapping off the sides. Yeah. So all those things are consistent. But the stride itself, yeah, is obviously different.
And this is another one from Nick here. And Hayden's the same. I don't know what a Hayden is. Do you know what that is? Hayden's?
No.
Nick's a good US boy though. So Nick, if you can clear up what Hayden's is, let us know and we'll hammer that for sure. And another one too, Nick had mentioned like undoing the top eyelet of a skate boot on a player, which I 100% agree with. I'm big on young players. So like, let's say I have a new player to the game at like 5, 6, 7 years old. I would 100% do up skates all the way to the top. They really need that ankle support and that support in their ankle just to be, especially when they're first starting. I've seen too many players with loose skates or top eyelets undone and their ankles are all over the place. So I'd really recommend that with young players. As players get older and stronger and they can skate well and they got that ankle strength, then if they want to take out a top eyelet, so undo a top eyelet, no problem. And yes, you will get more ankle mobility. You'll get a little bit lower. But at the same time, it won't fix the problem. Like if you got stiff ankles and you undo all your eyelets, you're still not going to fix the problem. So really address that ankle and before, and then tweak your boot a little bit, undo your top eyelet if you have to. I think that's really, really good advice for sure. One more here for you, Mitch, from Hockey Boy 14.
I can answer this one here real quick.
Yeah, give her.
So Hayden's, I just Googled it. It's a skater jump. So no, bounding is in a linear plane and it's a sprinting drill. And Hayden's is a lateral motion. So no, they're not the same.
Gotcha.
Both can be fantastic exercises, but they are indeed different.
Okay, sweet. Good Google there, Mitch. That was sick,
yeah.
Man. You're awesome. And then, Hockey Boy 14. Thanks for the question, buddy. What age should a player take offense seriously? So at what age, would you recommend a player to take it seriously?
And we kind of talked about this before. I think that it can always be taken seriously, but at a younger age, taking it seriously, I think means having fun with other sports. And when I say that, for sure under 10 years old, 12 years old, it should be playing other sports. I actually saw a really good video of Brett Harrison today. I don't know if you saw this one, but it was on the CHL website, and it was talking about his background in baseball, playing baseball before hockey.
Yeah.
So again, like the multi-sport thing, it was actually really cool to see, and I was happy to see highlighting some of the multi-sport stuff that he had done, because I know a lot of the other athletes like Trav Konechny was doing a bunch of stuff, other than hockey before solely doing hockey. So again, before 12 for sure, I think playing lots of sports is fantastic. If you want to get into, if a kid between 10 and 12 is really interested in getting into training, then getting into some speed drills and learning some track type stuff, I think is fantastic. Learning fundamental patterns for strength training with body weight, like squat patterns, lunge patterns, single leg strength patterns, upper body patterns. I think it's fantastic, but I don't think it becomes if when you're saying off ice, you're thinking weight training. I don't think that needs to become a priority until closer to high school.
Yeah, I would 100%. Obviously you're the expert in this field, but as on the on ice, like more on ice hockey focused, 100%. I think the kids need to be athletic at young ages and not be. And again, we talked about this last week, but I just want to touch on this because I think. Let's say going for a jog with your parents or doing sprints or going to the gym, that should be fun. And it really sucks when you're pushed and forced to do it at young ages. It really does suck. And by the time you're 15, 16, you hate it. You hate going to the gym. So I think making that a fun experience. And so at young ages, let them play sports, let them do their thing. And I think all parents want their kids to be really good. And man, if they did extra push-ups or extra crunches, they would be so much better. But I think we just need to relax a little bit, let them go. And like you said, Mitch, around that high school age, I think is a good time. And I know for me personally, when I went through it, I just had some buddies that were working out. So I'd go to the gym with them. My parents never told me to go to the gym or never really talked to me about any of that stuff. And I just found some buddies and if they had to nudge me a little bit, for sure, I probably would have still done it. But, I kind of got in with some guys that were working out and started getting into it that way. And that's how I kind of started training and working out. So I think Yeah, I think I'm not saying let it happen naturally, but I don't think there's got to be a lot of pressure on it at young ages.
No,
Let it be
I don't
fun,
think so.
and if they want to, if mom or dad works out in the basement or wherever at the gym, and Johnny wants to go with you or Sarah wants to go with you, bring them. They might only do one set of whatever or try something out, a couple exercises. Great. Let them have some fun with it. Let them enjoy it. And then hopefully down the road, they will kind of take to it a little bit more kind of naturally rather than getting pushed into it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was Drew Reed too. Jay had the same kind of question. Like, at what age should you really start to get them like in a supervised development program for working out and training? And I think that answers the question, probably high school age. And also too, like for anybody listening, I think every kid's different. We have some kids at 9-10 years old that love running, that love like shoveling, lifting weights. Like they like it. They love doing that stuff. So that's okay. Like that's like, I would promote that. I'd be like, yeah, man, let's go. We'll do, make sure it's controlled and they know what they're doing and they're safe. But some kids aren't into it, and that's okay as well. So I think it depends on the kid as well a little bit, but I think a safe rule was that high school age probably.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple rolling in here. So here's a good one here. So thoughts from Thomas Luginiti. There you go. Thoughts on the amount you need to get on the ice for coach training over off-season months? That's a great question. I think just an example, like so if you look at kind of our NHL guys, they usually don't start skating. Let's say they're done. This is a weird year, but let's say they're done kind of May, June. If they go on a bit of a run in the playoffs, they probably won't start skating till July, August, some of them. And they'll go once a week, twice a week, and then they'll kind of ramp up as they're getting closer. Now they're pushed out to like kind of September, October when they start to kind of take off. So they've got probably about 3-4 month period. They'll start off slow. For younger kids, I'm really big on letting them have, some time off and away from the rink, and, even a couple weeks if their season's done, or, they take a couple weeks, that's fine. If they want to go on the ice once a week, no problem at all. And then I would, once, twice a week, I think is plenty. And getting them to do other sports and other stuff on the side, is really, really important. And then ramping it up a little bit. Now, if you have an older player, like let's say a junior player or, something like that really has areas of their game they want to focus on and work on, then there may be, an opportunity to get on the ice a little bit more, maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, depending on the time of the off season. But some of these kids, man, we've had and some kids are on the ice 7-8 times a week, like 2-3 times in a day
in the off season.
It's crazy. Like that is, I do not recommend that at all. I think kids will burn out. And even though, mom and dad are like, no, he loves it, he wants to do it. Yeah, but he'd probably like to go to the pool too. He'd probably like to go swimming. He might want to go for a bike ride with his buddies. Like I think there's other things that you can do, not and aside from the money that it costs to be on the ice that much. I think it's important for kids to be kids, and as they get older, then you can dial in, certain aspects of their game, obviously. But once a week, twice a week, I think is great. And then as they get closer to the season, so if you're looking at a normal off season for a minor hockey player, probably, June, July, once a week, and then get in a twice a week, maybe in July. And then if you want to ramp it up a little bit to 2 to 3 times a week in August, I think is great. And also too, I think quality is better than quantity. And Mitch, I think the same in the gym, right? Like get quality work and be with a quality coach that's going to, maximize your time. Don't worry about spending 2 hours in the gym for a workout. You should be able to get it done in an hour and 15 and have a really, really good impactful workout or skate, I'm
going to touch on that too. I've just seen this in the past where players that a lot of times are coming to the gym every single day, going on the ice every single day. I feel like at a certain point they can get a little bit complacent because they just get used to it. They're like, I'll work harder tomorrow or whatever. Whereas if you're only there 2 or 3 times, then you take full advantage of that. So again, going back to quality versus quantity, I think that mentally you're going to get more out of doing 2 to 3 sessions than 5 most times. There's some circumstances where maybe more does work out, but in a lot of cases, it's not an ideal situation.
And again, I think for parents out there that are watching or listening or are going to listen to this later, I think it's difficult because you may be at home and then you get a call from your buddy and his son's on the ice again and he's going again tomorrow. And he's like, hey, why don't you come? And now you're getting caught in that rat race of trying to keep up with the other players and the other parents. Don't worry about it, man. Like, worry about your kid. Is your kid a good kid? Is he athletic, or is she doing the right things? Is she shooting? Like, if she loves hockey or he loves hockey, they'll show you that they like it, and then you can open some doors for them. But there's no point in chasing, other parents around trying to keep up. Do your own thing and figure out what works for you and your family, because it's so hard. And I'm a parent, and I find myself getting wrapped up in it sometimes too. So it's not easy, but it's also, be confident in what you know. And if you don't know, if you're not sure, then jump on stuff like this and ask questions, and we'll give you some honest feedback on stuff that we've seen over the years that we feel like that's worked quite well, and stuff that hasn't worked well for sure. We got a couple more sliding in here. So we got here we go. So Oleg Zuez, what's he got here? It says, is soccer a good cross sport for hockey? It's recommended by Hockey Canada. However, Kay Neal doesn't think so. Controversial.
Yeah, so I think at a young age, soccer is a fantastic cross training sport. Players can build fantastic aerobic capacity through that. I think that maybe the controversy would become a little bit more predominant at a older age, like 14, 15 is maybe getting a little bit more controversial. Some people will say that the way and the hockey stride is much different than running. And if someone is not conditioned to run throughout an entire soccer match, then it could, result in hamstring strains or whatever. Those may be the rebuttals on why soccer is not good. I think below 12 years old, your body's still developing, and you have not developed the structural changes due to a hockey stride that may cause issues in soccer, which I don't think that should ever happen if you're training properly. But yeah, I think soccer is a fantastic cross training sport.
I agree, man. And I think one thing I see with soccer is a lot of the soccer players that play hockey, they have unreal feet. As meaning, like, for like a good soccer player that go to hockey, they can kick a puck well, they can pick pucks up in their feet really well. Like, they have way better coordination with their feet. Like, so anything in their feet, they're way better at knocking it up, kicking it up, making a play. I think there's a lot of transferable skills there. Soccer, it's a lot of like trying to create 2-on-1s. So you're attacking 2-on-1. So there are some similarities like in the game, even though they're very different games, obviously. I think a lot of times where the controversy comes is the soccer coaches hate the hockey and the hockey coaches hate the soccer.
Yeah, that too.
Right? Because a lot of times the seasons collide at the end of the season. So the hockey coach doesn't want the soccer player to leave and vice versa. So I think there's a lot of that going on too. And let's be honest, if you're a high-end soccer player, your soccer coaches are telling you, like, you got to pick a sport. You should pick soccer. And if you're a high-end hockey player, your hockey coaches for the most part are like, you got to pick a sport. You should pick. And that happens at like probably 12, 13, 14.
It happens young. Yeah.
And I think, again, it comes back to like knowing your kid. And if your child loves the game of soccer and they're good at it, there's going to be a time when they're going to collide, meaning it's going to be really hard, probably financially, time-wise, working out-wise, athletically, to be able to do them both at a really, really high level. Not to say you can't, but I think there's going to be a time where you're going to be able to or you're going to have to make that decision on, okay, maybe we have to pick a sport. But I agree with Mitch. I think it's a great cross-training tool, and any sport, man, anything. I think any sport at young ages that kids can become more athletic at is huge, whether it's basketball, soccer. We got another question here too about lacrosse. So like, I think there's a lot of, I think it's awesome, man. So
it really is, to me, like those younger ages, and we're really emphasizing that, like 12 and under, 10 and under, regardless of the sport, if your kid is interested in it, then that's the one they should pursue, regardless of what that sport is at that point. It's I don't think they should be pushed in any one direction because someone's heard that soccer is better than lacrosse or lacrosse better than soccer as a cross training tool for hockey. It's whatever one that they migrate to. And then, I think that the controversy of it happens a little bit older. At a young age, it's all about having fun.
Yeah, totally. For sure. All right. Okay, I want to touch on one thing too. And again, anybody who's listening, if you have any questions or something that's come up that in kind of talking to parents or coaches or anything like that, fire away, answer or throw any questions or comments in the comments section. We'll get to them. One thing I wanted to touch on, we kind of already touched on it, but just the importance of getting players kind of more athletic and getting them in that athletic stance and that ankle mobility piece. Mitch, I know that right now you're kind of looking at putting together some videos on this, and I just want you to talk just quick. You don't have to go into depth on it, but what are some of the key things that you see with athletes? It doesn't have to be hockey players. I know, we're talking about hockey right now, but what are some of the, like, when a player can't, I just want to punch this home is basically what I'm getting at. But when a player has limited ankle mobility, what kind of restrictions do you see, like even in the gym? Like squatting becomes an issue, like all like things like that, right? So what are some of the biggest kind of obstacles that a player like that is going to face if they don't have proper ankle mobility, they don't have like a proper athletic stance?
So hopefully this one here really hits it home. So, I mean, you will be able to compensate with a different type of squat pattern, with a lack of ankle mobility, where you're still or trap bars or whatever. There's a lot of exercise in the gym that we can work around an ankle mobility issue, and you'll still develop strength in your core and your hips, so your glutes and everything's going to get a lot stronger in your central points. Now, the issue with that is, as you develop strength through your core and your hips, if you're not able to translate that through your entire body and into the ice, then you're really building strength for no purpose. So we want to make sure that we address that early in the gym as we do new exercises and as players are learning how to skate with proper techniques, so that as they gain strength through their midsection, that strength can actually be expressed through their entire body. And that's really the big thing. So your body will always put governors on you too. So if you develop all this strength in your hips and your brain knows that it's unsafe to push with all that power because something down the chain is not strong enough to support it, then it'll deflate what you're actually capable of. So again, it's really important that you develop central strength, but then that everything down the chain is able to support that power that you are capable of generating. And a lot of times, if you lack ankle mobility, even when you have strength, you cannot express that strength. If that hopefully that makes sense.
I like that, and it kind of makes me like just think of my like going downstairs and looking at my body and seeing what areas of my body are not firing properly. But it's so important, right? And sometimes it's not like, I think we look at hockey players, sometimes we look at the ones that are like kind of jacked, and especially when you're 14, 15 and kids are starting to fill out and get, pecs and shoulders, and you're like, oh, that guy's strong. Look at the arms on him, or look at the shoulders on him, or that girl's strong. Look at her legs. And to your point, that's all good and fine and having like some structure to your body. But man, if all your areas of your body aren't working together, it doesn't matter how big or how jacked you are. Like we've all seen it. The small guys or the small girls sometimes are way stronger than some of these bigger girls and guys, just because they work, they're more efficient and their body's working together. So I think it is like so important to hammer this home that, getting everything working together. And let's be honest, man, you're working on ankle mobility or flexibility or like stretching, it's boring. Like it's not fun. It's not like exciting. You're not going to sweat you could sweat, but you know what I mean? It's not like that grind that we're used to, that, that hard workout, but it's so important to incorporate that into your workouts, and especially for parents to be aware of that.
And we'll usually mask that stuff into workouts actually, so that we are still doing some of that during like a sweaty session. So it may be on the rest period during a circuit, you're going up to the wall and doing some ankle dorsiflexion exercises throughout your 2-minute rest period. So maybe for 1 minute, you're working on one leg, focusing on diaphragmatic breathing, bringing your heart rate back down, and working on ankle mobility while you rest between another, like your circuit or something like that. Or even on like a bench press day, if we're in a strength phase and we're resting for 2-3 minutes between like a push pattern, then we might do some lower body mobility drills between that, in that 2-3 minute rest period. So it doesn't have to be a standalone session, just working that stuff in as it fits in a session where otherwise you'd just be resting and doing nothing. You're not taking away from the recovery of say an upper body exercise if you're doing pull-ups or something like that, by going over to the wall and working on some ankle mobility drills between sets of pull-ups or something like that. I love it.
So, that's great.
Yeah, but that's something we talk about in the gym a lot, is the law of diminishing returns. And the way that we see that is, so I mean, if you develop, say, a 500-pound trap bar deadlift, but you can only jump a 26-inch vertical or a 100-inch broad jump, then you've definitely reached the law of diminishing returns for your current state in trap bar strength, because getting stronger on the trap bar is not going to help you jump further or higher. We need to work more on power, because there's such a gap between power output and strength. And then another, if we see a lot of strength in the hips and core, but we're seeing that it's not being expressed through the entire body, then maybe we work a little bit less on strength and more on other aspects of lower limb strength. We see people express their strength far more since we've been doing more foot and ankle strength and speed drills and speed training and all that kind of stuff. We've always done speed training, but we've definitely taken a little bit of a different spin on it in the last couple of years, and we've seen some fantastic results with that. And it really is just, it's expressing the strength you have.
Yeah. It's great. And sometimes though, like players are allowed to just keep pushing weight. Like, you're at 500
Yeah.
pounds and keep going five, instead of saying, wait, you're only jumping 100, you're only jumping 100 inches. You should be jumping like,
130.
how much you're, for how much strength you have. So we need to tweak this a little bit and go back and start working more on, and see what's wrong basically. And let's, I think that's huge, man. That's good. Got another question here from Thomas back on about, do you think hand-eye coordination drills are important for forwards? I think hand-eye coordination is huge for D and forwards. And I know a lot of times we think of forwards because we think like being in front of the net and tipping pucks, which is huge. Don't get me wrong. But what about those defensemen where someone's coming down on a 2-on-2 or a 3-on-2 and they go to dump the puck in and that D-man just knocks it down and makes a play, like kills a play right at the blue line just because he knocked the pass down or knocks a saucer pass that's going cross ice. So I think, yes, 100%. Working on hand-eye coordination is massive. I'm going to give a couple like little things that I think are huge and something that you can work on at home really easy. And Mitch, if you got any in the gym, fire away. But one thing simple, like even just taking a tennis ball and a hockey stick and going to a school or a cement wall or a concrete wall, even a curb, and just slapping the ball against the curb or the wall and just trying to knock it down. Like it sounds silly, and then use once you get good at a tennis ball, it's kind of slow and big, then use a lacrosse ball or use even a bouncy ball, like one of those like super balls. But working on those little things, just tapping things out of the air with a stick is huge. So, and again, I think becoming more athletic helps with hand-eye. There's no doubt. But for tipping pucks and moving, like knocking pucks down in a game and things like that, I think anything that you can use with your hockey stick, even wearing your hockey gloves, so you're kind of feeling like you're holding what you're going to be holding in a game. And then use, working on those little things. If you have a brother or dad or somebody that can shoot pucks at you, you can knock them down, then great. I think that's awesome too. But if you're doing stuff on your own, just working on that as much as you can is huge. And Mitch, I don't know if you got some stuff in the gym that you guys do with hand-eye.
Yeah, we do, but especially with different sports though, or even with goalies. I mean, I think that in this context, like doing it with a stick and a ball or stick and a puck is really important because it is a very specific type of hand-eye coordination that you're working on. And then going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think again, one of the many benefits to being a multi-sport athlete when you're younger is you develop hand-eye coordination through a variety of different implements, whether it's a basketball, baseball, hockey puck, whatever. And that stuff does translate when you get older. If you're only accustomed to one sport and one implement like a soccer ball or a puck or whatever, I have seen that those players don't have the same level of coordination overall as 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds if they don't have any exposure to other sports. And that doesn't mean competitive. Like that's even going to at recess and playing basketball or soccer or whatever. It doesn't have to be competitive.
Organized. Yeah, totally.
It does have to be organized. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Thanks for the question, Thomas. That's awesome. Hope we answered that. And then the last one here, Mitch, that we've got, and we'll probably wrap. If anyone wants to close up with a couple questions, go ahead. You can fire them in the comments. But are more elite hockey players going to plant-based diets? And I'll leave this. And we're not nutritionists, and so we're not. But Mitch, you've dealt with this a little bit with some players. And what are your thoughts on plant-based, kind of vegan or vegetarian over meat?
Yes. So there are certainly ways of doing it. I haven't had any pro athletes that are interested in going down that path. Not even remotely interested in it. Now, as far as our nutrition goes, what we do is we get a naturopath, Callum Cowan, to do all of our blood testing and all that kind of stuff to look at where their nutrient levels are at, what foods they're sensitive to, maybe any imbalances in hormones and stuff like that. And then he prescribes their nutrition plan and their food plan. And there are ways to eat vegan or vegetarian and fulfill all those needs, but it is a very conscious effort to do it properly. Not that it's not a conscious effort to do it when you're eating a meat diet as well. But yeah, I don't see a lot of it. I know when Game Changers came out, that Netflix documentary, there were a lot of people like watching it and talking about it, and there were some pretty funny scenes in it. But yeah, I haven't actually seen many players interested in taking that route. Again, there is a way of doing it. It takes some real planning to do it well. But I'm not seeing a lot of it. No.
I can speak, like my sister was vegan for a while, like for quite a few years, and I can speak just as an outsider, like going to dinner, going to lunch, things like that. It is more of a challenge when you're trying to order vegan. You know, unless you go to a completely vegan restaurant or whatever, it is more of a challenge. So I think part of it is that barrier of just it being a little bit more challenging to get food and get, you know, enough food, especially for an elite athlete who's trying to like get calories in. But there are some that do it for sure. And I think that the game changer was definitely there's a lot of there's a lot of like the meat side or the, you know, the protein side, or the meat and fish side over the plant-based side. There's a lot of arguments on both sides, but I think at the end of the day, everyone's different and everyone's going to react differently to food and their intake. So I think it's something you got to try out a little bit and see what works for you. And see how your body reacts to it. And if you're getting the benefits and the gains that you want and you're getting the nutrition that you need, then try it out. But like you said, Mitch, I think there's a lot of ways to make that work if that's your choice.
If that's the path you want. Yeah,
definitely. All right. Okay. Last thing I wanted to just, we'll wrap up here with this. And again, if anyone has any last minute questions, go ahead and fire it out for sure. As far as just, if you've got a young player, so like I'm thinking like young, like 6, 7, 8, 9, like young kid, who isn't very athletic. All right. So they're uncoordinated a little bit and just naturally, this is just their kind of their natural state. And then 9, 10, they're still kind of a little bit uncoordinated. Are there ways to help young players become more kind of coordinated, athletic? Not saying that they're going to be a fluent, you know, basketball player, a fluent hockey player, but, you know, because I played with players, man, at high levels that are super uncoordinated and they're really good hockey players. So it's very possible to get, you know, to play high level doing this. But is there a way, are there ways to help players, you know, become more athletic and get more in tune with their body at younger ages?
I think a really important piece of this is meeting them where they're at. So letting them understanding what they're coordinated enough to do, and then provide an environment where they're getting small wins continuously. So a lot of times I feel like especially if a younger player is thrown into situations where they don't feel that they're coordinated enough to keep up or anything kind of like that, then they can kind of shut down and their development slows down a little bit. So I think it's really important that they are put into environments that match their ability to coordinate what they need to coordinate in that environment, and then can slowly increase the stimuli, I guess you could say. So like, and that's just like, for example, I mean, maybe you're just passing on the spot, and then you're passing in motion, and then you're just breaking the skills down even more than you would for maybe another player who gets it a little bit more naturally. So for that player, it may take a little bit of regression in terms of skill acquisition, but I think it's important to figure out where you can match them in terms of their current ability, and then slowly scale that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you've seen it firsthand in the gym. I've seen it secondhand in the gym, but some of these young players some of these young athletes that have come in, I'm going to say they were not athletes when they first came in, but started to work with, I think they were working with Josh at the time and got better at running, and like we're super uncoordinated, got better at running.
Yeah.
And then, man, what happened to their confidence, right? Confidence started going up a little bit.
Huge.
Even just coming in the gym, their shoulders were up a little bit more. Hey, how's it going? You know, they were just like, it was awesome to see that. And I think so for parents out there, what I'm getting at is if you have a son or daughter who maybe isn't athletic or uncoordinated, you know, find an area that, like Mitch said, that they're going to get those small wins, whether that's karate or jiu-jitsu or it's at a CrossFit gym or whatever, but somewhere where they can start to, because I think it's so cool it's such a confidence boost for young people in general, just to become a little bit more. And I'm not even saying they got to have a six pack and be shredded or be jacked when they're 15, 19, whatever. It's just when kids start getting a little bit more athletic, I think it's huge just for confidence and just self-esteem. Things like that. It's massive.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Mitch. That was awesome, buddy.
Yeah, very good.
So just for anybody out there, if you are looking for any stuff or any content or anything like the follow up with the stuff that we talked about today, I'll have this up. This live will stay on YouTube and Facebook as well. So if you want to check back on it, go ahead. And Mitch, I'll get you to kind of plug it into this last week because I'm terrible at this kind of stuff, but I'll get you to kind of plug where people can go to check out your programs, because you got a ton of great programs that people can do remotely. So if they have young kids out there right now, they're looking to like work out or get into training or even just beginning, you've got a lot of good stuff that you can do virtually now with, you know, through the app and stuff like that. But where can people find you and what kind of stuff do you have for them?
Yeah, so totalpackageSSC.com. And what I would recommend doing is if you click on any one of the become a member tabs, there's a questionnaire that you can fill out. And that questionnaire is going to shoot off to us. And then we can evaluate sort of where you may fit into one of our programs, because we do have quite a few programs. We have what's called the Pathway to Success with fundamentals, level 1, 2, and 3. And through that questionnaire, we can identify where you may fall in that path to get started. And we can do that stuff virtually, or we can do it in person. We have a lot of the same programs offered in both contexts. So totalpackageSSC.com, fill out the questionnaire, and then we can get in touch with you with the best approach.
Awesome. And we just put your website in the notes or in the comments too. So if anyone's not sure, go back to the comments. You'll see Mitch's Total Package SSC in the comments as well. And if you're looking for any skill videos as far as off-ice skills you can work on or different things like that, you can check us out at theNSDA.com. So Total Package Hockey, we're hoping to get back on the ice and get things going again in London and starting to work with the players again hands-on. But if you're looking for stuff to do at home kind of virtually, at theNSDA.com, we've got a bunch of different stuff. We've got free stuff like 5 days to a harder shot. We've got a bunch of videos on there that have skills that you can work on at home as well. So feel free to check that out anytime that you get a chance. So, and we'll be back again next Thursday. So we're probably going to be locked down in Ontario for another year and a half. So we'll be doing this every week.
Yeah.
We get back on.
Leave it up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thanks a lot for everyone who checked in. And this was awesome, Mitch. Thanks for your time, buddy. And
awesome. Appreciate it. So it was great.
Next week, buddy. And again, anybody who's listening, and if you have questions throughout the week, fire them to Mitch or I, DM us, send them to us in social media on our Facebook pages or on YouTube, whatever. But send us questions and we'll kind of populate them throughout the week, and then we'll address them as we're going live. And again, if you check in live, we love it. So thank you very much. And you can always ask us questions on the fly when we're here. So
great.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Chat soon.
Thanks, man.
Bye.
All right.